A 13-year-old girl sold her paintings on a sidewalk to afford her cancer treatment. Then Clint Eastwood stopped by. Everything changed. Emily Thompson was just 13 years old when her world changed. She lived in a peaceful neighborhood in Northern California, where the roads were lined with tall trees, and the houses stood close enough that neighbors waved to each other every morning. Emily was one of those kids who brought light wherever she went. She wasn't loud or wild. She was gentle, thoughtful, and had a calm kind of smile that made people want to be around her. Since she was 5 years old, Emily had been in love with painting. Her first masterpiece, according to her mom, was a picture of a purple cat flying through the sky. It made no sense, but it hung proudly on the fridge for years. As she grew older, her paintings became more detailed, more colorful, more full of life. She loved painting nature sunsets over hills, waves crashing against rocks, birds in flight, trees in the wind. Her tiny room was filled with jars of paint, brushes of all sizes, sketchbooks, canvases, and paintings pinned to every wall. Emily's parents, Karen and Mike Thompson, were regular, hardworking people. Karen worked as a school librarian, and Mike was a mechanic. They weren't rich, but they managed to give Emily a good life filled with love, books, and opportunities. Every Christmas and birthday, they bought her new art supplies, and every summer they enrolled her in local art classes. She never asked for toys or gadgets, just more paint and more brushes. But that summer, something strange began to happen. Emily started getting tired more easily. She used to run up the stairs 2 steps at a time, but now she walked slowly, her legs heavy. She would come home from school and lie down right away, complaining that her bones ached. Her appetite shrank. One day, she showed her mom a strange purple bruise on her arm and said, "I don't remember bumping into anything." A week later, there were 2 more. Karen, worried, took her to the doctor. They did blood tests and asked questions. A few days later, they were sent to a hospital in the city. The results were back. The doctor sat down with a serious face and said the words no parent ever wants to hear. "Your daughter has leukemia." Time stopped for a moment. Karen couldn't breathe. Mike gripped the chair tightly. Emily looked between them, not understanding at first. "What's leukemia?" she asked softly. "It's a type of blood cancer," the doctor explained gently. "But it's treatable, especially when caught early. It will be a tough journey, but there is hope." Emily didn't cry, not right away. She just stared at the wall, and she said, "So, does this mean I can't go to art class anymore?" That night, as her parents cried quietly in the kitchen, Emily sat on her bed with her sketchbook, drawing a sunflower pushing through a crack in the sidewalk. She titled it, "Still Growing." The next few weeks were a blur of hospital visits, tests, and meetings with specialists. Emily began her chemotherapy sessions, and soon her long brown hair started falling out. She wore a soft beanie that her grandmother had knitted, but she never complained. The treatments made her sick, exhausted, and sometimes dizzy, till she painted. Every day, when she had even a little strength, she would pick up a brush and create something beautiful. But even with insurance, the cost of cancer treatment was high. Karen and Mike found themselves sinking under bills, hospital stays, medications, travel costs, specialized food, and the days they missed from work to stay with Emily. Their savings were disappearing fast. They tried not to show Emily how worried they were, but she could see it in their eyes. One evening, as they sat together in the living room, Emily quietly said, "What if I sell my paintings?" Karen looked at her surprised. "Sweetheart, your paintings are beautiful, but we don't want you to worry about the money." "But I want to help," Emily said. "People buy paintings all the time. If I can make something that makes someone smile, maybe they'll want to buy it. And then we can use the money for the medicine. It's still my way of fighting." Mike leaned forward, tears in his eyes. "Are you sure you want to do that?" Emily nodded. "Yes. I want to do something. I don't want to just lie in bed and feel useless." So they agreed. The next Saturday, they set up a small folding table at the local park. It wasn't a busy park, but on weekends, families came out with kids, people walked their dogs, and joggers passed by. Emily laid out 10 of her favorite paintings, bright, happy pieces that she thought might bring joy to others. A cardboard sign in her neat handwriting read, "Art for Chemo, help me fight cancer." At first, people just walked by, glancing curiously. Then a woman pushing a stroller stopped. She looked at a painting of a kite flying high above the hills and asked, "Did you make this?" Emily nodded. "Yes, ma'am." The woman smiled. "It's beautiful." She bought it for $20. That was her first sale. By the end of the day, Emily had sold 4 paintings. A few people gave her extra money without taking anything. One man gave her $50 and just said, "Stay strong, sweetheart," each Saturday. After that, they returned to the same spot. Emily painted during the week and brought new artwork every time. Some days were better than others. There were weekends when the park was empty, or the weather turned windy, or Emily was too sick to sit for long. But she kept going. Always with her quiet smile and determined heart, a local bakery owner named Mrs. Delaney started giving Emily free cookies and hot cocoa every time she came. A group of high school students helped her set up the table. When they saw her arrive, people began to recognize her. "There's the art girl," they'd whisper. "She's the one with the brave heart." One day, a reporter from the local newspaper came by. She had heard about the little girl who was selling paintings to pay for her own cancer treatment. She interviewed Emily, took pictures, and published a story titled, "Young Artist Battles Cancer with Colors." After the article came out, more people started visiting the park just to see her artwork. Some bought paintings, some donated, and others simply came to tell her how inspiring she was. A little girl came with a painting she had made and said, "I wanted to be like you." Even though Emily often felt tired and weak, those moments made her feel strong. She didn't feel like a sick kid anymore. She felt like someone who was making a difference, even in a small way. One evening, as they were packing up, Emily looked at her mom and said, "I feel like my paintings are doing something. Like they're helping me heal not just on the outside, but on the inside too." Karen hugged her tightly.
"They are, baby. You are."
Back home, they kept a notebook where they wrote down every person who bought a painting along with how much they donated. They called it the Kindness Book. Emily decorated the cover with sunflowers and stars, though the road was still long. And there were still many treatments ahead. Something had changed. Emily no longer felt powerless. She felt hopeful, connected, and brave. And even though no one knew it at the time, something incredible was about to happen, a moment that would change everything in Emily's journey. But for now, she sat in her room under the warm glow of her desk lamp, gently brushing strokes of blue and gold onto a canvas, humming softly to herself, painting a world where anything was possible. The sun was just beginning to rise when Emily woke up. Light filtered gently through her bedroom window, casting a soft glow on the walls covered with her paintings. Despite her tired body and the constant ache in her bones, Emily smiled as she looked at the watercolor she had finished the night before. It was a painting of a lighthouse standing tall in the middle of a stormy sea. She called it Standing Strong. It felt like her own story on canvas. It was Saturday, her favorite day of the week. It was the day she got to share her paintings with the world. More than that, it was the day she felt closest to hope. Though her arms still ached from the recent chemotherapy session and her head felt a bit dizzy, Emily pushed herself to get ready. Her mother, Karen, helped her pack the paintings, brushes, and the small folding table. Her father, Mike, filled a thermos with warm tea and packed a blanket just in case Emily needed to rest. Their small car was packed with everything they needed. As they drove to the park, Emily looked out the window, watching people walking dogs, opening shop doors, and jogging down the sidewalk. For them, it was just another morning. But for her, every morning she could sit, breathe, and paint was a gift. They arrived at the park around 8:30 a.m. The air was crisp and cool. Birds chirped from the trees and soft wind rustled through the leaves. Emily and her parents set up her small table near the walking path where people would easily notice her work. They carefully arranged her paintings, landscapes, animals, starry skies, and flowers of every color. Each one had a little white card in front with a simple price, $10, $15, or $20. But people could pay whatever they wanted. Some gave more. Some didn't take any paintings and just gave donations. Emily sat on her foldable chair, wearing her soft wool hat and a cozy scarf. She placed her hands on her lap and waited with her usual quiet smile. Within half an hour, a young couple pushing a stroller stopped in front of the table. The woman bent down to look at a painting of a tree with golden leaves falling to the ground. "This is beautiful," she said. Emily smiled. "Thank you. That's called Autumn's Dance. Did you paint this yourself?" "Yes," Emily said proudly. The woman looked up.
How old are you?
13, Emily replied. "I'm selling my art to help with my chemotherapy. Bills, I have leukemia." The woman's face softened. She reached into her bag and pulled out a $50 bill. "I want this painting," she said. "And thank you for sharing your heart through your art." Emily thanked her, wrote the donation down in her little notebook, and waved goodbye. Her parents watched from the side, their eyes filled with quiet pride. As more people passed by, some stopped to ask questions. Others stood in silence, admiring the paintings. A few children tugged at their parents' hands, begging them to buy one of the colorful animal prints. One little girl asked Emily if she could become an artist. "2, you already are," Emily told her. "Just keep painting." As the morning passed, Emily sold 6 paintings. A man in a wheelchair gave her a $20 bill and told her she reminded him of his daughter. A teacher bought a painting of a night sky for her classroom. A teenager offered to help her build a website to sell her art online. Emily's story had already begun spreading after the newspaper article. More and more people in town now knew about the brave girl who was painting to survive. Many came not just to buy her art, but to be near her, because something about Emily made them feel peaceful. Her strength was quiet but powerful, like the lighthouse in her painting. After lunch, Emily began painting again while sitting at her table. She dipped her brush in light pink and started creating a cherry blossom tree against a blue sky. A few people stood nearby watching her work. They were amazed by how steady her hand was, how focused she looked even while fighting cancer. A woman named Mrs. Delaney, who owned a bakery down the street, brought her a small bag of cookies and a cup of hot cocoa every Saturday. 4. "My favorite artist," she'd say, handing it over with a wink. Emily always laughed and thanked her. The cookies made her feel like things were still normal, like she wasn't just a girl with cancer, but a kid enjoying small joys. The regulars began forming a little community around her. One man, Mr. Howard, who had lost his wife to cancer, came by every week to buy a painting and sit with her for a while. He would tell her stories about his late wife, who loved sunflowers, and Emily would listen kindly. Eventually, she painted a special sunflower piece just for him. As the weeks passed, Emily's story continued to grow. A woman from a nearby town came to see her after hearing about her from a friend. She bought 2 paintings and gave Emily a hug. A high school art teacher invited her to speak at a school event. And though she was shy and nervous, Emily said a few quiet words about never giving up and how painting helped her feel strong. One Saturday it rained. Emily was too tired to get out of bed, and her parents decided to skip the day. She lay in her room, bundled in blankets, her sketchbook on her lap. The rain tapped gently against the windows. She began to draw a small girl in a raincoat dancing under an umbrella. She called it joy in the storm. Even on the worst days, Emily painted, and painting became her way to fight the darkness. When the medicines made her sick, when her fingers trembled, when her energy drained, she still picked up a brush and found peace in the colors. She had created more than just artwork. She had created a story that was being told by others. Shared in whispers, posted on community boards and social media, strangers began mailing her letters with encouraging words. Some sent checks with notes like, "For the girl who turned her battle into beauty." One afternoon, a local photographer named Jamie stopped by and asked if he could take pictures of her for a gallery show about young heroes. Emily blushed and nodded. Jamie took photos of her smiling with her paintings, laughing with her mom, and holding up a sign that said "Art for Chemo." The pictures were displayed at a small community event, and visitors cried when they saw the strength in her eyes that day. A woman gave Emily a gold locket with the word hope engraved on it. "It belonged to my daughter," she whispered. "She would have loved you." Emily clutched the locket and thanked her with tears in her eyes at night. Her parents often sat together in the kitchen, going over the notebook where they recorded every donation and sale. They were amazed at how much they had raised, almost enough to cover several months of treatment. One evening, Mike said, "Can you believe this all started with one little painting of a sunflower?" Karen nodded, tears rolling down her cheeks. "She's doing more than surviving. She's changing people." Emily's strength didn't come from lifting heavy things or winning races. It came from her heart, from the quiet power of choosing beauty over fear, kindness over pain, and giving over receiving. And as the days went on, more and more people were drawn into her world, a world of colors and courage, a world where even a sick little girl could light up a park with her art. One day, as Emily painted under the warm sun, surrounded by people who admired her work and her spirit, a man walked by quietly. He wore sunglasses and a simple baseball cap. No one recognized him at first. He paused, stared at the paintings for a long moment, and then reached out to pick one up. He didn't say anything right away. Just stood there holding a watercolor of a seagull flying over crashing waves. Emily smiled at him. That one's called Freedom. The man looked at her, nodded slowly, and said in a deep voice, "It's beautiful." He asked her name, and listened as she explained why she was there, selling art to fund her treatment. He asked her how she was feeling, and she answered honestly. Then he asked how much the painting cost. Emily told him. He pulled out a few bills, handed them to her, and said softly, "Keep the change." Then, slowly, he removed his sunglasses. Someone walking past stopped in their tracks. Another person gasped. Emily's mother looked up, eyes wide, because standing there, calm, quiet, and full of kindness, was none other than Clint Eastwood. But Emily didn't know that yet. Not yet. Because in that moment, all she saw was a man who understood her painting. A man who, like everyone else who stopped at her table, had been touched by her story, by the art that told it. What happened next would stun the entire town. But for now, the little artist just smiled and said, "Thank you for buying my painting." And Clint Eastwood nodded, his eyes full of something deep and quiet, like a story waiting to be told. It was a sunny Saturday. It's one of those clear days when the sky looks freshly painted and the breeze carries just the right amount of warmth. Emily sat at her usual spot in the park, her little folding table placed under a shady tree. Her paintings were spread out neatly, as always, each one bright, cheerful, and full of hope. Birds flying in pink skies, flowers blooming in meadows, children dancing in the rain. Every painting told a story that came straight from her heart. Even though chemotherapy had left her body weak and tired, Emily's spirit was still full of color, just like her art. She smiled at every person who stopped by, answered their questions about the paintings, and never forgot to say thank you when someone made a purchase or donation. Her quiet courage had already touched many hearts in her town, and strangers were now coming from other cities just to meet her. That morning, she had sold 3 paintings before noon. One was a picture of a glowing moon above a peaceful lake. A young couple bought it for their baby's nursery. The second was a sunflower field, which an elderly man purchased in memory of his wife. The third was a painting of a little bird learning to fly. A teenager bought that one and whispered to Emily, "This feels like me." Emily's mom, Karen, sat nearby on a bench, reading a book, but keeping a careful eye on her daughter. Dad, Mike, was walking back from the parking lot after running a quick errand. Everything was going as usual, peaceful and warm. Then something unusual happened. A tall man in a dark jacket and jeans strolled down the path. He walked slowly, like someone in no hurry. He wore a baseball cap and sunglasses, and he carried a cup of coffee in one hand. No one paid him much attention at first, just another person enjoying a walk in the park. But then he stopped in front of Emily's table. Emily looked up and smiled like she always did. The man stood there silently for a few seconds, his eyes scanning each painting one by one. He picked up one that showed a stormy ocean with a single lighthouse standing tall in the middle of the crashing waves. Emily remembered that one well. She had painted it during a particularly tough week of chemo, when she had felt like her whole world was shaking. She had named it Unshaken. "That one's strong," the man said quietly, his voice deep and calm. Emily nodded. "It's about staying strong, even when everything around you feels scary." He looked at her. "Did you paint all these yourself?" "Yes," Emily answered. "I paint them during the week and sell them on weekends to help pay for my chemo." I have leukemia." The man's face was mostly hidden behind his glasses, but Emily could feel his attention. He wasn't just being polite, he was really listening. "You've got talent," he said after a pause. "And courage." Emily smiled shyly. "Thank you." He picked up another painting, a peaceful scene of a horse galloping across a wide field. Then another, a little cabin in snowy woods. He held all three for a moment, then looked at Emily again. "How much for these?" Emily told him the price, and he reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out some folded bills, and handed them to her. She tried to count and give him change, but he shook his head. "Keep it," he said gently. "Are you sure?" Emily asked. "Absolutely." He reached up and with a slow motion took off his sunglasses. Karen, still reading on the bench, looked up just at that moment. Her eyes widened, and the book slid slightly from her lap. A woman walking her dog nearby gasped. A jogger slowed down, did a double-take and stared. It was Clint Eastwood. Yes, the Clint Eastwood. The legendary actor and filmmaker. The man known for his powerful performances in classic films, his deep voice, his squinting eyes, and his calm intensity. A Hollywood legend standing right in front of a teenage girl's art table in a quiet park, buying her paintings like any other customer. But he wasn't acting. He wasn't there for a movie or a photo shoot. He was just a man walking through a park who had stopped because something in Emily's art had touched him. Emily didn't know who he was at first. She had heard the name, maybe seen his face in old movies her dad watched, but she didn't recognize him right away. All she saw was a kind man who liked her work. Clint looked at her with deep, thoughtful eyes. "You're stronger than most people I've met," he said. Emily's cheeks turned pink. "I'm just trying my best." He nodded slowly. "That's more than enough." He asked for her name again and took out his phone to write it down. Along with the park's location, he didn't say why. Then with a gentle smile, he put his sunglasses back on, tipped his cap slightly, and walked away, still holding the three paintings in his hand. People who had been nearby started whispering. "Was that who I think it was? No way. That was Clint Eastwood." Karen quickly stood up and rushed over to her daughter. "Emily," she said, her voice still filled with disbelief, "do you know who that was?" Emily blinked. I think he said his name was Clint." Karen laughed softly, half in shock, half in joy. "Sweetheart, that was Clint Eastwood, a very, very famous actor." Emily's eyes widened. "Really? He seemed normal." "That's what makes it even more amazing," her mom said. "He stopped because of you, because of your art, because of your story." Emily looked down at her table. Her little handwritten sign still read, "Art for Chemo, help me fight cancer." The same sign that had been there for weeks. But today, it had caught the attention of a Hollywood legend. More. People began gathering around her table, curious and excited. Some had seen what happened. Others heard whispers from nearby visitors. Soon, a small crowd had formed, asking questions, pointing at the table, buying paintings. One man pulled out his phone and posted about what he saw. "Just witnessed Clint Eastwood buy art from a girl selling paintings to pay for chemo. Pure class. Hashtag faith in humanity restored." The post went viral. Within hours, the story was being shared on social media platforms. Photos from onlookers appeared online. Headlines began to pop up. Clint Eastwood surprises brave teen artist battling cancer. Legendary actor supports girls' fight through art. Hollywood heart meets real-life courage. Emily had no idea what was happening on the internet that night. She was home, curled up under a blanket, sipping soup while sketching a new painting idea. She was thinking about Clint's eyes, kind, wise, and strong. There was something about him that made her feel like everything was going to be okay, but the next morning, the world knew her name. Her parents' phones were full of missed calls and messages. Journalists from news stations wanted interviews. People across the country wanted to buy her artwork. Emails poured in, some with encouragement, others offering help, and many asking where they could donate. Emily blinked at the screen in shock. "What happened?" Her dad smiled and showed her the post with over 1 million likes. "You happened," he said, "and Clint Eastwood helped the world see you." Emily didn't know what to say. She felt overwhelmed, but grateful. All she had ever wanted was to help her parents and stay strong. Now the whole world seemed to be cheering her on. She picked up her sketchbook and began drawing a new piece. It showed a little girl standing in the middle of a busy street, her paintings floating like balloons above her head, and a tall man walking away in the background, leaving behind a trail of stars. She titled it, "When Magic Walks By." That day in the park didn't just bring more attention to Emily's art. It brought hope, love, and a powerful reminder to everyone who heard the story that quiet courage, true kindness, and a heart full of color can change lives with just a single BRUSHSTROKE. And though Emily didn't know it yet, this was only the beginning of something far greater than she had ever imagined. After the extraordinary day when Clint Eastwood had come by to buy her paintings, Emily's life changed in many ways, both big and small. At first, she wasn't quite sure what to make of it all. The world suddenly felt larger, louder, and filled with new faces and voices. But through everything, Emily stayed true to herself, painting every day and sharing her story with gentle courage. The morning after the news had spread like wildfire, Emily woke up to dozens of messages on her phone. Her parents had already replied to some, but there were still so many emails, texts, and calls waiting for her. Friends, strangers, even people from faraway places wanted to know more about the brave girl whose art had touched a famous actor's heart. Some offered donations. Others asked if they could help in different ways. A few artists even sent messages saying they wanted to collaborate with her. Emily felt overwhelmed, but also deeply thankful. She turned to her parents, who reminded her gently to take one step at a time. "You don't have to answer everything right away," her mom said. "You don't have to say yes to everything. Listen and decide what feels right for you." So Emily decided to focus on what mattered most: her painting, her family, and her health. At the park that Saturday, her usual place felt a little different. The crowd was bigger, and more people stopped by to see the girl who had captured the attention of Hollywood. Cameras and reporters came to interview her, but Emily stayed calm, speaking softly about how painting helped her cope with cancer and how much she appreciated the kindness she had received. Some people gave her gifts or supplies, books about painting, even a small tablet to help her create digital art, but the most meaningful gift was the kindness and support from the community. People who had never met her before sent letters and cards filled with encouragement. A local bakery donated cupcakes every weekend for her and her family. Teachers at her school organized a fundraiser, selling paintings and crafts to raise money. For her medical expenses, Emily felt like a little light shining in the middle of a sometimes dark world. Her story was no longer just hers. It belonged to everyone who had seen her strength and believed in her dream. One afternoon, a representative from a national cancer foundation called her family. They had seen the news story about Clint Eastwood and Emily, and they wanted to help. They offered financial support for her treatments and invited Emily to participate in a special program for young cancer patients who loved art. Emily was excited but nervous. She didn't know what to expect, but she agreed. The program brought together kids from all over the country who were fighting cancer. They met in a big studio filled with paints, canvases, and music. There, Emily found friends who understood exactly what she was going through. She shared her story with them, the long hours in hospital beds, the tough days when chemo made her too sick to get up, and the moments when painting gave her hope. Her new friends shared their stories too. Together, they painted, laughed, and sometimes cried. One girl named Mia was Emily's closest friend. Mia was 10 years old and had been battling a rare form of cancer for 2 years. She was shy, but had a fierce spirit. Emily and Mia spent hours painting side by side, dreaming about the future and promising to keep fighting no matter what. The art program became a place of healing. It was where Emily learned to use her pain as a source of creativity, turning dark feelings into bright colors and hopeful images. It was also where she found strength in others, realizing she wasn't alone in her fight. Back at home, the support didn't stop. People from all walks of life continued to reach out. An art gallery in a nearby city invited Emily to hold an exhibition. She was nervous. She had never shown her paintings in a real gallery before, but her parents encouraged her to say yes. The day of the exhibition arrived, and the gallery was filled with paintings, balloons, and visitors eager to see Emily's work. Some were art lovers. Others came because they had heard about her story. Local news cameras were there too, capturing the event. Emily walked through the gallery, smiling shyly as people admired her paintings. A few of her pieces had sold already, and others were being reserved by buyers. The walls echoed with compliments and kind words. Emily's favorite part was watching children pointing at the paintings and asking questions about the colors and shapes. The gallery manager approached her with a warm smile. "You have a gift," she said. "Your art doesn't just show beauty. It tells a story of hope and courage." Emily blushed, but nodded. She knew her paintings were more than just colors on paper. They were a message to anyone who was struggling. One evening, after the exhibition, Emily received a surprise invitation. It was from Clint Eastwood's team. They wanted her to come to a special event where he would speak about cancer awareness and support young patients. Emily couldn't believe it. She was nervous but excited. With her parents by her side, she traveled to the event in a big city hall filled with hundreds of people. When Clint Eastwood took the stage, the crowd erupted in applause. He spoke about his respect for people who faced tough battles with courage and mentioned Emily's story as an example of true bravery. Then he invited Emily up on stage. Emily stepped forward, feeling her heart pound. She held the microphone and spoke about how art had saved her life, how painting helped her feel strong when everything else felt uncertain. She thanked everyone for their support and shared how every kind word and every painting sold meant more than money. It meant hope. The audience stood and applauded, some wiping tears from their eyes. That night, Emily went to bed feeling proud, not just of herself, but of all the people who had believed in her. But the journey wasn't over. Cancer was still a powerful enemy. Chemotherapy treatments were long and painful. Some days Emily could barely get out of bed. Sometimes the medicines made her sick and her hair fell out in clumps. She missed school and her friends. She cried when she was alone and scared. But even in the darkest moments, Emily painted. She painted her fears, her dreams, and her hope for a future. She painted pictures that made people smile and others that made them think deeply. Each brushstroke was a victory, each color a promise to keep going. Her parents stayed by her side every step of the way. They became her biggest fans, encouraging her to rest when she needed it and cheerleading her every small success. Doctors were amazed by her strength and determination. They said Emily's positive attitude helped her heal better and faster. Emily also found comfort in her school. Her teachers made sure she didn't fall behind, sending homework to her when she was in the hospital and helping her catch up when she returned. Her classmates sent cards and messages, and some even came to visit her at home. Emily's art became a bridge that connected her to the world beyond cancer. It gave her a voice when words were hard to find. One day, as Emily was painting a sunset over a quiet lake, her mother sat beside her and said softly, "You've changed so many lives, Emily, including mine." Emily smiled. "I've changed because of you, Mom. Because of all of you." She knew that no matter what happened, she was not alone, and through her paintings, her story would live on. Her journey was still unfolding, filled with challenges and triumphs, tears and laughter. But Emily had learned one important truth. Even when life feels like a storm, there is always a light to guide you through, and sometimes that light shines from a simple painting made by a brave girl with a heart full of hope. After months of treatment, challenges, and incredible moments of hope, Emily's journey was reaching a new chapter. Cancer had tested her in ways no one could imagine. There were times when she felt weak and lost, moments when she wanted to give up. But through it all, her art remained her anchor, a source of strength and light that never faded. By now, Emily had become more than just a girl selling paintings in the park. She had become a symbol of courage and hope for many people, an old, near and far. Her story had inspired thousands to believe in the power of kindness, determination, and creativity. Emily's health was slowly improving. The doctor said the treatments were working. Her blood tests showed progress, and her energy was returning bit by bit. She still had many days when she felt tired, but those days were becoming fewer. With this new strength, Emily decided she wanted to do more than just paint for herself. She wanted to help other kids who were going through what she had faced. She wanted to give them the same hope she had found through art and kindness. She began working with the Cancer Foundation. That had supported her. Together, they planned workshops and art therapy sessions for children fighting cancer across the country. Emily traveled to hospitals and community centers, sharing her story and teaching art. She told the kids how painting could be a way to express feelings that are hard to say out loud, and how every color could bring a little light into their lives. At one of these workshops, Emily met a boy named Jacob. He was 8 years old and had been diagnosed just a few months earlier. Jacob was quiet at first, watching Emily carefully as she painted a bright sun on a large canvas. But when Emily handed him a brush, something changed. Slowly, Jacob began to paint too. His first picture was of a big green tree with strong roots. Emily smiled. "That's perfect," she said. "Trees are strong. They grow no matter what." Jacob's eyes lit up, for the first time since his diagnosis. He seemed happy. Emily realized then that her art was a gift that could be shared again and again. It could heal not only her own heart, but also the hearts of others. Meanwhile, Emily's own paintings continued to sell. Galleries wanted to show her work, and collectors wanted to buy it. But Emily never forgot where she had started at. Little table in the park, selling paintings to pay for chemo. She made sure to keep some paintings for charity auctions to raise money for cancer research and patient support. Her family and friends celebrated every milestone, each treatment that worked. Each new painting completed, every smile after a difficult day. They were proud of her, but more than that, they were proud of the person she was becoming. Brave, kind, and determined. One day, Emily received a letter from Clint Eastwood's office. It was an invitation to visit him at his home in California. He wanted to talk to her about a project to support young artists like her and to raise awareness about cancer. Emily was both excited and nervous. Traveling so far from home wasn't easy, especially with her health still fragile. But her parents encouraged her to go. "This is a wonderful opportunity," her dad said. "It could open many doors." So Emily packed her bags, bringing along her favorite paintings and her sketchbook. The trip was long and tiring, but when she arrived at Clint Eastwood's home, she felt welcomed and comfortable. Clint was warm and humble, just as she had remembered. They spent the day talking about art, life, and hope. Clint shared stories from his own experiences and told Emily how much her courage had inspired him. He said he wanted to help create a foundation that would support young artists battling illness, giving them a chance to express themselves and find joy in creativity. Emily felt proud and grateful. Together, they planned to launch art competitions, workshops, and exhibitions for kids across the country. The goal was to show the world that, even in the hardest times, art could bring light and change lives. When Emily returned home, she felt more motivated than ever. She worked harder on her paintings, helped organize events, and spoke at schools and hospitals. Her story was no longer just about her fight against cancer. It was about giving others the tools to fight their own battles. As the months passed, Emily's health continued to improve. She started to dream about the future, going back to school full-time, traveling, and maybe becoming an artist or a teacher one day. She knew there would still be challenges. She felt ready to face them. One sunny afternoon, Emily returned to the park where it all began. She set up her little table again, this time surrounded by friends and family. Children she had met through her workshops came to visit and paint alongside her. The park was filled with laughter and bright colors. Emily smiled. thinking about how far she had come from a girl struggling to pay for chemo to a young artist inspiring thousands. She looked at her paintings, each one a chapter in her story, a story of pain, hope, and courage. She knew her journey was not over, but she also knew that with art and love, she could face whatever came next. And so Emily's story became more than just a fight against cancer. It became a story about the power of the human spirit, the beauty of creativity, and the incredible things that can happen when kindness walks by, just like Clint Eastwood did that day in the park. Her brush was her weapon, her heart, her guide, and her paintings a light for everyone who needed hope. Emily knew she had a long road ahead, but she was ready, because she wasn't alone anymore. She had a whole world standing with her.